Hockey players, you want to get stronger and increase your first step takeoff on the ice, you need to incorporate these 2 exercises and start training single leg strength. So all I'm going to use is a kettlebell and a hurdle. So use about 80% of your 1 rep max, single leg RDLs, go nice and slow, and then accelerate up for 5 repetitions. Then get on the ice, you're going to mimic this movement. You're going to be pushing off the toes, forward, back, lateral, skate, and back. Forward, back, lateral, skate, and back. Just like you're on the ice. 5 repetitions, 4 rounds. You'll be faster. Your first step takeoff will be a lot quicker on the ice.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, Brendan Taylor, True School Sports, The Untouchable. You know the rest. Listen, man, you guys are going to see a really great interview right here with NHL fitness expert Tony Greco. This is a great person that I met recently and it was crazy how we met. It was just crazy how we met, right? Because I went to someone, my friend David, shout out to my boy David Hoff, who works for the Florida Commission, and I know him through just boxing and whatnot. He hit me up and he said, BT, Brendan, you got to go down to Hollywood because Mike Tyson's going to be there signing autographs or taking pictures or whatever. So I said, cool, I'll go up there now. So I go to Hollywood. Mike Tyson winds up showing up at a local marijuana dispensary to promote his products or whatever, right? So for those of you who know me, I don't really smoke, and that means I don't have a medical card, which means I couldn't buy none of his products, which means I couldn't get into the venue, right? So I decided to wing it. I said, why not? You know, I'm gonna wing it. I'm gonna stay here in this parking lot for like 3 hours. Mike Tyson's gonna come out. I'm gonna find my way to interview Mike Tyson today. Now, I was positive, I was optimistic. It didn't happen. That's okay. It'll happen in due time. But I did wind up meeting Tony Greco, and we started talking about hockey, right? Because for those of you who don't know, I'm a huge hockey fan, as you can see by the old school Panthers pictures back there. Florida Panthers all day, the greatest show on ice, you know. But anyway, we started talking about hockey and whatnot, and then I come to find out, you know, who he is, and we start talking about just hockey and fitness and whatever. So I tell him a little bit about what we do here on True School Sports for Boxing. He says that he should come on and do an interview. It made sense because Tony isn't just an NHL fitness expert and a fitness expert in general, but he's also a former IASKA Kickboxing Champion, coming to you live and direct out of Canada. So it made perfect sense to interview Tony Greco. So that's what this is, the Tony Greco interview, the Tony Greco experience. Check it out. Make sure you support him. Follow him on Instagram. I'll leave it for you guys down below because I want him to get it. I want you guys. I support him and everything he's got going on, and I want anybody who's watched this interview to support him with everything he's got going on because he's a great guy and he's great at what he does. So yeah, here it is. Enjoy the interview. All right, Brendan Taylor here, True School Sports. I got a special guest today, none other than the man himself, Tony Greco. Nice to have you on, Tony.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. It's been, you know, I know we've been kind of going back and forth on the Instagram, so it's finally good to nail you down and have you here.
Yeah, no, it was great, and it was great to see you during Mike Tyson's visit there in Hollywood. That's quite the experience, eh? Yeah,
that was a very intriguing day. You know, waiting in the parking lot trying to get the Mike Tyson interview. It didn't happen, but you know, I got to meet you, so it worked out. You know,
That's right. Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to waste much time, Tony. You know, you're an interesting guy. You work a lot with like hockey players in the strength and conditioning department. But like, talk to me about, you know, your background, because you told me you were a kickboxing champion out in Canada.
Yeah, so what I did is I won a gold medal for Canada in 1995 at the IASKA World Championships. It's the International Sports Karate Amateur Association, and it was an amazing experience because I had to beat out over 25 opponents, and it was tough. It was tough because back then, I mean, even when we're fighting, and a lot of guys are listening to this podcast that have the martial arts background will know exactly what I'm talking about, because you know, even our hand pads, I mean, they weren't like fully supported. Even headgear, some of us didn't even wear headgear. As a matter of fact, my fight, there's no headgear.
Okay.
So it was like, I mean, it was like a Rocky fight. It was about 18 minutes long. I got a bleeding nose in like the 8th round. And I remember I was going to the corner and my coach was like, Tony, I mean, you got this. And I know that I trained 2.5 years for 2 hours every single day straight for this. And, I mean, it was just an amazing experience. And that's when I kind of switched and I said, that fitness should be for everyone, not for just the elite. And I could share some of those experiences. And that's what I do with all my professional athletes. So, I mean, I've taught martial arts for several years. I've had my own location. I promoted 2,500 black belts. I'm a 5th degree black belt in karate. Oh, yeah. So
you're a badass.
You know what? Karate actually taught me what not to do. It gave me the discipline. And that's why martial arts is such a great discipline for kids these days. And I inspire people that, you know, to take their kids to martial arts, especially if, you know, the discipline is carried out really well. I think that was a big part of my life because I had a tough upbringing, and I turned to fighting because I wanted to beat people up, and actually it taught me to calm down. So
yeah,
I credit, so I actually credit a lot of the stuff to martial arts, and now I can share that progress with other people, including athletes. And I think that's where a lot of the strengths are, where I get into like the athletic mind and just, you know, make people believe through stuff like these podcasts that we're doing that, hey, you know what, like everybody's got, if you have the will, you know, you could definitely take the steps forward to actually go through these obstacles that hinder your own personal growth and get through it.
Okay. You mentioned, you said you had a tough upbringing. What was your upbringing like as a kid?
Well, I come from an Italian background, and my dad was really strict, really strict. I mean, like, you know, his goal was that if you weren't a lawyer or a doctor, then you were basically a loser if you didn't go to school and pursue that career. And everything was tough. Everything had to do with you know, persevering and working hard. And like he didn't understand what team sports were. To him, it was like, no. You know, you're working here. It's like, well, Dad, I have football practice. I got to go. And it's like, no, you're not going anywhere. And, you know, if you did go, you kind of paid for it later with the odd slap in the face here and there, right? So, and I mean, that stuff now is actually, you know, it doesn't really happen as much. I mean, but back then it was very tough.
Yeah, he's cut from that old school cloth, because, you know, I have plenty of Italian friends, and they all have that crazy Italian father.
It's crazy. I tell some of these people, and I relate some of the stories, and we with some of my other friends, and it's like we kind of wonder, like, why were they like this? Like, everything was survivor mode in my house. You know, it's like, I mean, if you talk the wrong way, you know, you got to dodge, like, you know, a cup in the head.
Weave,
like,
you know.
Yeah, and it's like, why, you know. And I guess their upbringing through the generation was like that too. And maybe it was harder, and it's crazy. But you know, and it's funny because my dad just turned 85 yesterday.
Oh, bless him.
So, and I asked him, like, you know, do you remember like giving me quite the beating when I was young? And he's like, no, I never gave you a beating. Like, you were a little bit. And I'm like, in my head, like, dude, like, what the heck were you talking? Are you for real right now?
Yeah,
like,
they have amnesia.
It's crazy. And I mean, listen, it could have went either way. I'm just blessed and grateful that it didn't, because I can see, like, you know, being brought up in that kind of environment where you have to survive every day. That's all it was. I mean, I was worried that, like, what's going to happen next. And I mean, I started to rebel when I was 16, and I think that's where it all stopped, because at that moment in time, I was like, okay, well, either you're going to go or I'm going to go, but we're going to have it out.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I mean, that's why, like, I love the martial arts, because I took it at a young age. And I think all the frustrations and all the, you know, just that anger, I let it out on those pads. And it was like, it was a great feeling, you know, and it taught me what not to do.
No, absolutely. It's crazy how that winds up happening. You want to go to flex your muscles and be Mr. Tough Guy, and then you wind up being, you know, this nice, humble, you know, centered person after you've gone through training.
Yeah, you know, and then people always ask me, like, do you use martial arts on the street? I'm like, hell no, I don't use martial arts on the street. Like, I mean, I use the surprise element. What's that? I'm like, well, look, boom. And it's like, see that? I could have gone there, right? And it's like, I mean, the street's a jungle, you know, and it's like martial arts is a discipline. And that's why I can relate to fighters, you know, like, and boxing, especially. I mean, I work with a lot of boxing guys. I love boxing.
Oh, do you?
We took the elements of boxers, and we took the kicks from Taekwondo. So the martial arts, the karate and the kickboxing was just like a lot of the freestyle, because I mean, boxers have the best punches. No one's going to argue with that. And a lot of And then Taekwondo, because 80% of it is mostly kicks. I mean, they got great kicks. And karate's an empty hand art. So, I mean, when you tie that in together, it's a great combination. So a lot of these fighters, like mixed martial arts and stuff, fighters respect fighters because, to be a fighter, it takes a different person. And that's why people always ask me, they're like, you know what? Like, you could learn how to fight and you could have great technique, but you can't teach fighting. Like, you have to have it in you. Like I was fighting on a pro circuit. I used to go to the States once a month and fight on IASKA, which is a National Amateur Sports Karate Association. And I mean, every month I used to have to do these tournaments and you get seeded. And I mean, like, I wasn't like friends with people. Like, I wanted to just hurt people, and it's just, you can't teach that, right? You can't teach it. Like Mike says it perfect. Everybody's got a plan to get punched in the face, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it was like my first fight. I remember it lasted 30 seconds. I took a shot to the nose. I'm like, what? Fight was over, and I kept going. I didn't start winning until I was a brown belt, which was one just before the black. But once I got into my black belt, I was seeded 4th in North America and in a light middleweight class. And I loved it. I did a lot of tournaments. I went to a few of them, like Battle of Orlando, the one in Atlanta with Rick Rufus, which is another. I don't know if you know Rick Rufus, but
I'm not like I don't know a ton about kickboxing. The only like I know there's like boxers like I don't know if you know like Caleb Plant or Chris Algieri, but these guys were successful in kickboxing and they became successful in boxing as well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I remember that, and I remember even in Miami. Because we used to go there, we made 2 for Shannon Briggs. Remember him?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
So he was at Washington Boxing Gym, and it's like, just sharing a lot of these, experiences. Like I met Jake Lamotta, which is another great fighter, and we have a gathering here every year. It's Boxing for the Youth, where we bring in a lot of fighters, and we're all boxing, and all these legends. That it's amazing. It's amazing, like what they tell these young generation of people on, what boxing really did for them, and you can't, like, fighters have a lot of respect. And I mean, there's a reason why,
it takes a lot. I mean, I always say to even if you don't like compete, like if you just go to the gym and spar, like even that takes a certain person, because how many people are going to take in their free time, go to the gym and get in the ring and get punched in the face when they don't know what they're doing,
Yeah. Even when you're doing Randorian sparring, or just like, with the focus pads, like you got to be willing to get hit. And it's like, people don't get it. Like fighting it takes a special character, at least from what my experiences have been. And I see it all the time because I even, coach a few people to do a little bit of the boxing. Like we teach a lot. We work with a lot of athletes here. We train a lot of mainstream people, but we also work with a lot of fighters. And it's amazing how many people want to do, the boxing. They just want to release that frustrations on those pads.
Yeah.
I mean, you see some of the guys on my Instagram, that train with a few guys, and we do a lot of the focus mitts because they just love to, like, hit something, right?
So yeah, who doesn't? Who doesn't? It's part of like the natural instinct as a man. You want to punch on something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then some people look at it as a real huge stress reliever because they picture somebody's face that they probably don't like, So.
That always helps.
Yeah.
But I know you're from. Are you from Canada originally? I know you're from. Did you grow up in Canada as a kid? You're Canadian,
so
right?
I was born in Italy. So I came from Italy in 1974, and I was only like 7 years old. And I mean, I didn't even know how to speak the language. I mean, I barely still know how to speak the language. But I was thrown into school with people that I didn't even know. And it's like, here's this kid from Italy, doesn't speak the language, gets thrown into school like halfway through the year. And I mean, I remember as a kid, I was bullied back then. Now they call it bully. But yeah, I mean, I remember I got cornered one time in front of a car, and, it was about 12 people, and, they got like kicked in the ribs, punched in the ribs. They just beat up the new kid on the block, right? Back then, now it's called bully, but back then you just kind of took it. So
it's called life back then.
It's called life. Yeah. It's called, yeah. So and it just, you look back at some of the stuff and I'm like, man, oh man, like, and I'm sure everybody's got a story. That's just my story, but there's so many obstacles that I find, like, even now, like the young generation, like, have no idea, on how tough people went through. And that's just me. Imagine people before me. So the generation just keeps going, right? And now I think things are obviously a lot more civilized than they were before. But wasn't an easy upbringing, right? You gotta grind it out, right?
Absolutely. So like, how did you go from kickboxing to hockey? Now, you know, as you know, I mean, you see the pictures back there. I love hockey. I'm a big hockey fan myself. But how did you get from kickboxing to hockey?
So yeah, I was impressed with how much hockey you know. That's incredible. Yeah, I was like, what the heck? We're in Florida here.
Yeah.
You know what happened was after I won my gold medal, the experience was amazing. And I remember I had my martial arts school, and I had about 500 members. And I said I was competing on a pro circuit, and it's funny because I used to have only like 12 people. Sometimes even 10 come and compete. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I got over 500 members, but not everybody wants to compete. So I realized that the experience of winning, winning isn't everything, but wanting to win is, right? But the experiences leading up to that was incredible. And I said, that's why fitness should be for everyone, not for just the elite. So what I did is I said, you know what? I'm going to teach fitness because it's such a really good feeling. So I approached a few coaches because I wanted to be an Olympic coach. And then I spoke and I worked with this guy by the name of Ed McNeely from Sports Performance Institute. This is going way, way back. And then I hired this guy and I said, look, I want you to help me become a better martial artist. And he taught me. And then what I did is I said, I want to work with athletes. And being in Canada, because hockey's the Canadian sport,
it's huge.
I remember my first few clients were Dan Boyle, who played for San Jose Shark. Yep. And I remember one of my buddies, Richard, goes, you got to go see this karate guy. You know, he's doing fitness now. And, you know, and it's like, well, what's this guy going to teach me, right? And I always had that competitive edge. So I bring this guy. He comes in and it's like, I put him through a heck of a workout. And this guy was like, holy geez. He was like, he couldn't walk for a few days. So he started bringing me a lot of athletes. And then I started getting more and more hot guys. I got guys like Mike Fisher, guys like Marty Havlat. So all these guys started to come. And then, you know, Ottawa, we have a population here about, well, now it's just over 1 million people. So the word started to spread. And I loved it. I loved it because I grew up playing football all my life and martial arts. That was my two main sports. And then I loved hockey. And now, like, I live in and breathe it. Like I go on the ice. I try to be like an NHL player in beers in a beer league. And it's like, I just love the game and I love teaching it. I love watching my clients succeed and I love sharing the progress with other people. I see a lot of these young people missing the fact of that whole mind, body, spirit connection. And that's what I feel I could contribute a lot to, not just the physical part. And I see that in my athletes. So I get a real high on it, you know, and I love sharing these experiences through podcasts like this and hopefully inspire a lot of people.
No, absolutely. I knew you were really deep into the hockey when I texted you one day and you were like, yeah, I'm going to an OHL game. I said, OHL, he's really deep into the hockey. So
yeah, well, I get a lot of these guys at a young age. I only work with a lot of prospects, a lot of top prospects. I mean, I've been just very blessed and grateful that a lot of agents and a lot of scouts send me guys because that's kind of like, you know, the establishment I have. I don't really work with a lot of teams. Not that I just, you know, I want serious people. And because the training is very, very unique. I mean, the training we do is exceptionally well. I have to give a lot of credit to a good friend of mine. His name is Kyle Dietz at the University of Minnesota. Great mentor. Amazing. Dr. Ben Peterson, who is the fitness director for San Francisco 49ers. And they wrote a book called Triphasic Training. And it's training 3 different tempos to generate maximum force of power. Brilliant, brilliant people, amazing mentors. I love it because everything they do is tested. So it's funny because a lot of these guys that have trainers like, yeah, my trainer does lunges and he does this. I'm like, well, what is he measuring? And like, well, he's getting me stronger. How's he doing that? And they can't, then they ask their trainer and their trainer's like, what do you mean I'm getting you stronger? How? Because they just guess. And again, this is not to take a jab at trainers, but because I was one of those guys too, not intentionally, but there's nothing that I teach now that I have to second guess myself, you know?
There's a method to everything you're doing, pretty much.
Method. And these athletes that get paid a lot of money, they have to go into camp, being in the best shape. They have to, you know, you have to try to do the best you can to help prevent injury and rebuild, you know, their strengths and their weaknesses. And you need to know what you're doing. So I love this stuff because after speaking with Kyle Dietz and learned a lot from him, like, this guy's brilliant. And, you know, the thing I like about him too is that he's one of those coaches that let's say you were a trainer, like, well, guess what, Cal? You know what? I tested 20 athletes, and, jumping off a trampoline with one leg increased their leg power by so many seconds. Like, wow, that's cool. Let's try it. And he'll implement it and get even more testing on it. So, I like guys that expand their horizons, and that's exactly what I did. And I owe a lot of my success now to the new method of training, which is the triphasic, and then transition a lot of these people from the triphasic into what we call the French contrast, where we get you really quicker and more explosive. And you could do this concept with not just hockey players. Like,
I know, I was gonna say that. I was gonna say, like, because the getting guys stronger and more explosive, I feel like you could probably incorporate that into like boxing.
Incredible. You know what? One of my coaches here, Guy Willette, he teaches fighting. On ice fighting. He's won like 3 gold medals.
Wait,
and
on ice fighting for hockey? They have coaches for that? I don't know they have coaches for that.
Yeah. You should see some of this stuff. Like, I mean, it's incredible, because you think it's easy. It's not just the grabbing and then, the holding. Like, you got to know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of these guys, you see them, they hit a helmet. It's like, dude, what? Like, why are you hitting a plastic? Like you're gonna, you gotta need to play hockey.
You're gonna scrape your knuckles,
Yeah. So. It's incredible stuff. I mean, it really is, because you can apply this whole concept to everything. And what it is like every muscle action has 3 different tempos. So if I take a football and I recoil the ball, there's a slow eccentric movement. There's a slight pause, which is the isometric, and then there's concentric, which is the actual movement. So when you train these 3 different tempos using a lot of compound lifts, you really learn and teach the body how to resist force. And when you can resist more force, you can produce more power. So it's like a punch. If I'm going to, as a boxer, and I'm recoiling slow, and then I punch, if I do that slowly for 2 weeks, and then I hold it here, and there's someone's applying resistance, and let go, and I punch, my recoil is going to be so much quicker. It's going to be incredible, because the brain and all your body adapts to that stress mechanism of resisting, taking off. So it's the same thing like the boxing. 1-2 jab, right?
1-2 jab.
1-2 hook, 1-2 hook, So, I mean, it's very similar. And again, you could apply this concept to anything. That's why I'm really a big fan of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say? It's really, honestly, it's really cool. I see all the workouts. I see all the kettlebell workouts and how, you get everybody's calves bigger and whatnot. It's pretty cool. What would you say for you is, like, I guess, the most rewarding part of the training, right? Because it's like you're coming from a different realm, from kickboxing, you're doing stuff with the hockey players. Well, for you, what's the best part of it all?
The best part for me is I categorize my clients, my friends, into an A, B, and C list, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, you get a lot of the first round picks. Chances are that these guys are going to have a greater chance of making the NHL or becoming a pro, because you know what? They have more discipline. They're there first. They're rolling. They're getting prepared. Their mind, body, everything's there. So to uplift them on a scale of 1 to 10, I need maybe 2 or 3, of energy levels, right? The B students are the guys that are kind of like being told, hey, look, you got potential. You got to do this. So, you got your energy levels at about a 6, right? The C students, meaning 10 being the best, 1 being the worst, as far as delivering that energy, right? So the C student is the one that I really enjoy, is when I see a person that, has some talent, doesn't have the greatest kind of like belief and the greatest ability to understand and believe that they can be the best. And then a guy like me or some of my coaches take this guy, wake up the animal in them and realize that, hey, you have it in you. You just got to want it, right? So when that guy goes from a C to an A, that's very rewarding. We've had about 2 or 3 of those cases where it's like, wow, because we honestly really believe that we contribute a lot to those efforts of getting that person from A to Z, right? Because like I said, that A student, is pretty determined. And yeah, you have to push them and motivate them. But you know what? At the end of the day, these guys are there for reasons, right? That's why you have winners and losers, right? Winners know who they are and what they want, and losers are always looking at who to blame. So
that's true.
And it's like if you can uplift those people, say, look, you got this. And they start to kind of dig in a little bit and wake up that animal in them. It's like, hey, and that's really rewarding, is being able to take that person to the next level.
Okay, yeah, no, that's awesome because at the end of the day, that's really I feel like where your paid grade goes up, because you taking somebody who's not the best and making them elite, that's always the best thing.
Yeah, it's such a rewarding feeling, like everybody loves a hero, right? Whereas like, I mean, take a look at the NHL, right? A guy like McDavid, okay, well, you know what? I mean, he's gonna have great games pretty much every day and that
Yep.
he plays. And even if he doesn't, he's still gonna make good plays. But imagine getting a guy that you don't even hear about, and all
Yeah,
of a
like
sudden, you know what I'm saying? And then he
a
makes these
third
moves.
line AHL player, like
Exactly, exactly. You're like, wow, like where did this guy come out? Look at this, and those are all success stories. Like I've seen even in guys like Dan Boyle. Look, Dan Boyle wasn't even drafted. You know the
yeah.
story he's got for kids. This guy was never drafted. He was told he was never going to make the NHL. He's a Norris Trophy candidate,
Oh,
Stanley Cup champion, gold medal. That's what I'm talking about.
top level puck moving defenseman. I
Exactly.
remember Dan Boyle very well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And not really a big guy, but this guy here, like you playing a game of ball hockey, and this guy's going to take out your shins because he's going to just, yeah, oh yeah, this guy's so competitive. It's insane. But that's the guys that you're like, man, like these are the guys and these are the stories that you love to hear because they're like, they give hope to a lot of other people.
Yeah,
And
they're
that's,
more
that's,
relatable. They're more relatable because not everybody's gonna be Connor McDavid or Mario Lemieux, just otherworldly
exactly.
talents.
You got exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How much traveling do you do? Because I feel like right, you got clients everywhere. So do you have to travel a lot to go to like hockey games?
I try to get to see the clients at least once or twice a year. I
Okay.
mean, I try to go to a lot of NHL games, and but again, it's very tough to see them all. I try to get a lot of the OHL and even some of the like the Badams and the Junior A games because those are very rewarding because those are my investment for my clients, right? Because these are guys that right now that are 15 and then going on to 16, 17, 18, and eventually making the pro leagues. So they're with me pretty much for life. So I try to go to the games for one reason. One is to really see and study a lot of the angles because I think a lot of the stuff that we do, and again, we try to post some stuff on Instagram, but I mean, the compound lifts and the strength are pretty standard for most people. But one thing that we do is we cover angles really well. A lot of linear lateral movements, a lot of single leg strength because hockey is a single leg sport. I mean, those are little things that a lot of people don't really do. The ankle stiffness drills, ankle rockers, little things that stem from the ground. And you're like, what do you mean you're doing this like ankle rocker? Yeah, dude, because, you're on your skates and that ankle is resisting all those forces. So if those arches of those feet collapse and then it triggers off to the chain, your knee goes, your hip goes, you're not going to be accessible to play hockey. So it's like the roots of a plant or a flower. I mean, if the roots are strong, the flower blooms, right? So little things like that, people are like, they would never
Yeah, and
think of.
all the stuff you're talking about, I never considered that, and I watch hockey all the time.
See
So
what I mean? I train
yeah.
my clients bare feet, and they're like, bare feet? I'm like, yeah.
In the gym?
In the gym,
Okay.
barefoot, because you lose the flexion of your toes, especially a lot of these young people that get into like these, it's very expensive running shoes and like their arches of their feet are like this. There's no
Yeah.
flexibility, there's no flexion. So all of a sudden, when you're in through the boot of the skate or even in your shoes, like all the impact of those forces are all absorbed through the big toe. And if those forces are not absorbed correctly, you're never going to be really in the proper firing pattern with your hips. And you're not going to be able to withstand the force properly to generate more power because when your body's in danger, first thing it does is protects the brain. Second is the spine. So if you're like, on the ice and you don't have like really good balance and the brain and you get into the corner and some guys come in and check you, the brain's like protect themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the first thing it does. But if you have good balance and stability because you've been practicing a lot of that single leg stuff, then the brain's like, hey, my guy's okay. Let him go in the next stride, right? Some really, really neat science that, again, adapting to those stress patterns. The minute your body knows that you have stability, it spends less time saying, okay, this guy doesn't have stability. Let's move on, right? So, working the big toe, doing a lot of single leg stuff is so key because you're always transferring forces from one leg to the other. The other thing that's really big that I do, that's really interesting that people go, well, I seen you squat with one leg in front, one leg behind. I'm like, yeah.
I've seen that too. I've seen that too on your Instagram.
Because that's the athletic position. So think of a boxer, one leg in front, right? He's like this.
Yep.
Think of a hockey player. You're always in transition. Any kind of sport. You can Google, you can go right now and Google, sports-specific stance or sport, and you'll see a lot of these athletes in transition. They're never in a bilateral movement. Now, if you're a power lifter or a bodybuilder and you want to squat and build the glutes, yeah, that's fine. But if you're a player, I'm going to build your glutes, but I'm going to put you in an athletic position because that's most likely where you're going to be when you're resisting that force, right? And that's all where the body and the brain connection is more normal for you to be in. So it's really neat stuff. I mean, like,
it sounds so intricate. I never realized that, because I know a couple of strength and conditioning coaches in boxing, but I never realized the amount of detail that goes into that. And I guess that's anything, right? Because to be great at anything, you need to be prepared and be detail oriented.
You need to be prepared. You have so much better stability. I call it the athletic stance, right? Which one leg's in front of the other. And you just have way more stability. You're more used to absorbing force. Like, let's say in hockey, if you get a check, you're used to absorbing that force. Even in boxing, moving lateral, golf with a swing,
tennis.
Yeah, you're always in that transition. So your body is so used to withstanding that force as you're doing that whole movement pattern that I call it free energy. Your next movement is a lot easier. It doesn't spend as much time trying to balance you in that athletic position because you're practicing that movement all the time, as opposed to bilateral where, you do your traditional squats and your traditional deadlifts and all that, with your feet just shoulder width apart. Like, you don't walk, with both feet. You're in transition one after the other, right? Yeah. It's just little things like that you're like, you know what? It sounds so simple, but we never think of these things, right? Because we just watch and absorb what we were taught, and we never really experimented with, science and testing and just the way your body functions, right?
Trying to push the envelope, that type of thing.
Exactly.
Okay. What's a normal day for you? Because I'm hearing all these, I'm hearing all these exercises. I'm hearing some of these words I never heard from coming out of your mouth. But what's a normal day in the life of Tony Greco, as far as preparing your athletes and whatnot?
Yeah. So what I do is I have set programs that I work on, and they're 2-week blocks. So what I do is, let's say you were my client, you would come in and I would measure your 1 rep max, what you could do for 1 repetition. So let's say you were benching 100 pounds for 1 rep. You're like, oh, okay, there's your 1 rep max, man. Now what I would do is say, look, you know what? To get you stronger, what I'm going to be doing is for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be working with 80, maybe 85% of your 1 rep max. You're like, whoa, what do you mean? Well, I'm going to put a lot of stress on your body. And the way I'm going to let you do that bench is like this. You're going to go 5 seconds down and then explosive up. So during those 5 seconds of resisting that 85-pound weight and pushing, you're going to do a lot of things to your body. Number one is you're going to be ripping the tissue, which sounds gross. But what happens is your immune system, you're going to see a huge increase in your white blood cells, and then your immune system is going to come in, clean this tissue out, and make it thicker, right? The next 2 weeks after that, you're going to do those same movements, but now I'm going to make you hold in the down position for 5 seconds and then explode up. But the only reason why you can hold that, because 2 weeks prior, remember, you were ripping that tissue, you built it, became stronger, it could resist more force. Then 2 weeks after that, then you would do it really fast. But what you will see and find is that you will be pushing more weight at a faster level. So you would see your gains in strength and speed and power. Then I would transition you into some more stuff like plyometrics and more athletic movements. So I write a lot of programs, individual programs. I work with my team of experts. I have doctors that work with me, nutritionists that work on blood work. So a lot of these doctors, I have a particular doctor, Dr. Michelle, will take 11 vials of blood. And people are like, what? Yeah, because what happens is your standard doctor will only take the standard requirement. I don't know how it is in the States. I'm sure it's the same thing, where you go see your family doctor and you're fine, Brandon, everything's good. Well, what do you mean fine? I'm a pro athlete. I don't want to be fine. I want to be amazing, right? What are you comparing me to? And a lot of these standards of these blood work requisition are compared to the average, 10, 20, 30-year-old athlete, where this is more optimizing your strengths. For instance, to put it in easy perspective, it's like, think of an engine of a car, right? Let's say you drive a car and it has a 4-cylinder engine, and then your buddy has a car, same car, and he's got an 8-cylinder engine, same car, but that 8-cylinder is going to go a lot faster, a lot more stronger. So when you do the blood work, you got to compare yourself to that athlete that, is strong, works out every day. And that's where you really have to optimize everything, like your hormones and your vitamin D and, all your proper vitamins and minerals. So I have a team of doctors that work with me. And then I also have a nutritionist that work with me, because the fuel you put in your body, whether you're an athlete or not, is very important. So that way you're getting the whole, tailored health program as far as training goes. And then as far as, nutrition goes. And then, we don't want to talk about this, but let's say you do have an injury. Then we have our team of physiotherapists and our medical team that works on rehabbing a lot of the injuries, so we get you back a lot quicker.
So you guys got all the bases covered, everything pretty much.
Well, that's
it sounds
the team,
like it.
Right? Yeah, that's the team you need. Now, we've been very fortunate because, see, the kind of training we do, I shouldn't say prevents injuries, because nothing really does it, but we've seen less injuries. And we've seen less injuries because I think what's happened is the tissue has become a lot thicker, that, if you are put in that situation where, you have to withstand force, you have a greater chance of someone that hasn't trained like that to, absorb that force and generate that power. So it's like, again, you have, like, think around your joints as a cast. You have a thicker cast that can bulletproof a lot more than the average cast, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So
you harden the body up, and it's just be prepared.
Yeah, it's just more prepared, so it can resist more force. That's basically what it is, right? So you have your skeletal system, and around there, you got all this tissue that surrounds this bone structure. So if that tissue is a lot thicker, then it could withstand more and push more. If it's not, then your joints are weak, and you could get hurt. So, I'm just sharing some of the stats that we've had a lot less injuries because of the way we've been training. Touch wood, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, with our athletes, which is incredible. Even look at some of our players that are in the NHL. Look at a guy like Claude Giroux. Look how many games this guy's played, right? Yep. And, he's not a big guy, 5'11".
No,
I think the only one injury he's had was that concussion where Simmons flipped over and his skate hit his helmet.
Mm-hmm.
But other
than
that,
it's a freak accident.
But other than that, this guy's, touch wood, has been unbelievable. One of the best players. I think he's gonna go down as a major Hall of Famer for sure.
He's a great player, and I'll always love him because he helped the Panthers end the playoff drought last year. So I'll always love him for that.
Yeah, this kid. Listen, I've seen a lot of athletes, and he's one of my mentors. Not because he's a client, because you can't teach what he brings out. You just can't. This guy he wants to win every day. He's there early at his workouts. He's ready to go. He's got that fire in the eyes. He wants to finish first. You can't teach that. And you know what? The thing about this guy is, Brandon, he is consistently wanting to win and be better than everybody else. You know what I mean? He brings out the best of people. He's a true leader. Look what he's doing here in Ottawa. This guy's 35 years old. I don't know if you've watched some of his games.
No, I mean,
he's got like, I think 23 goals or something already. It's incredible.
I keep tabs on the Senators because, they're in the Panthers division. So I see the box score sometimes and what he's doing. He scored a couple goals against us. So, Claude's always been amazing, from Philadelphia, and then obviously last year with the Panthers, and now with the hometown Senators.
He loved the Panthers. He loved the Panthers. Even I talked to him, and he said, he loves that organization, loves the guys. Barkov, he says, a beast. And he just loves it because the guys, he loves the positivity around the team. He says they're a bunch of great guys. They're great guys. Yeah. You can see that.
When you talk to him, tell him we love him too. We still love him here in South Florida.
Yeah, I will.
But Tony, I don't want to hold you much longer, man. I guess the last question I ask you is, with everything you got going on, all the great things you have going on, which, with your training and whatnot, what do you ultimately see all this going on? Like, do you have somewhere you want to be in 5 years, or are you already there? Like, what's the vision?
Well, you know what? I'm very blessed where I am right now. I'm blessed with a beautiful family, beautiful home, and an amazing business, something that I love, right? So when you have a business of going to work where you love what you do, it's not really work. And
it's true.
So I just, from here on, I just, want to pass along and share the progress with others. So, my coaches and my mentors that are working with me, hopefully they can share that progress and continue the legacy, because that way we could see a lot more athletes, a lot more people becoming more healthier, feeling more positive about themselves, and hopefully trying to make, this world a little bit better place. Because I know that people are always, going into falling into obstacles and are down. They all have our good days or bad days. And you know what? If you can learn how to really go through that, then I've done my job. And that's the most, rewarding thing that I just tell myself every day. Look, you need to be here. You need to make a difference. You need to share this progress with others and just be the best person you can be, and believe and make other people believe that they can do the same thing.
No, absolutely. And I love that, man. It seems like you really enjoy what you do, because, you see people sometimes, like, whether it be in boxing or what, training or anything in life, and they can kind of like fake the funk, they don't, they're just going through the motions. You don't seem like that kind of guy. So.
No, I mean, you know what? That's, I think, and it's funny, you're not the first guy that says that. And then they asked me why. I think it's because I was in it, right? Like, when you're in it, you almost feel it like it's yours. Like, even when you're bringing that to people, that's the competitive and that, that white tiger attitude that you have, where you're like, you just want to be the best at what what you're teaching. So it's almost like you're doing it for yourself, right? But you're bringing the best out of them, and they feel it, because it's all recycled energy, right? The more I give, the more you give me. It's like, okay, let's do this, right? So. Yeah, I mean, it's a good feeling. I mean, I'm jacked up every day, right? Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, Tony, it was a pleasure, man. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and I'll be talking to you more on Instagram and whatnot.
Yeah, you know what? Like, anytime you want me back on, even to talk about certain things, I love sharing the progress with other people, because it's great. It's great, like, that we have these podcasts, and keep doing a great job.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you this: if you ever come back down to South Florida, maybe you could put me through one of those workouts, because I'm working on my fitness. But when I see you, like when I see your Instagram, sometimes I'm like, man, I need to do more in the gym.
You know what? We're gonna go through some of the movements, because I'm gonna be there. I'm actually coming back March 19th for 2 weeks. Okay. So I'll hook you up through the Instagram, and maybe we can hook up. I'm gonna be in Hollywood.
Oh, perfect. I grew up around Hollywood, Dania Beach area, so
yeah. Good.
All right, Tony. Good. Well, thank you for talking to me, man.
Yes, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
All right, Tony Greco. Thank you for talking to True School Sports.